Be agreed to. I call the Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. The Customs Amendment Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Bill 2018 amends the Customs Act 1901 to implement Australia's obligations under the TPP-11. These amendments are complementary to those contained in the Customs Tariff Amendment Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Bill 2018. I'd like to take this opportunity to speak to the two bills that are in front of us here today, so they're very much related. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to conclude the debate on this important agreement. The TPP-11 is one of the most comprehensive trade deals ever concluded and will eliminate more than 98% of tariffs in a trade zone spanning the Americas and Asia, with a combined GDP worth some $13.8 trillion. Australian farmers, manufacturers and services exporters will benefit from new market access opportunities in economies with nearly 500 million consumers. It will provide better access for farm exporters, including beef and sheep meat producers, dairy producers, cane growers and sugar millers, as well as cereal and grain exporters. There will be new opportunities for our rice growers, cotton and wool growers, horticultural producers and our wine exporters. Now, recent modelling undertaken by economists from the Brenderis International Business School and Johns Hopkins University shows Australia is forecast to see some $15.6 billion in net annual benefits to national income by 2030. This follows earlier modelling by the respected Peterson Institute for International Economics, which found that the TPP-11 would boost Australia's national income by 0.5% and boost exports by 4%. This sort of boost to our nation's income means more jobs, higher wages and greater investment into further areas of business and jobs growth. Let me provide one example of how TPP-11 will give our farm exporters an advantage over some of our toughest competitors. Within 2 years, Australian beef exporters will face tariffs 13 percentage points lower than their United States competitors in the multi-billion-dollar Japanese market. Now, that tariff advantage will continue to widen over subsequent years. Our manufacturers will benefit from the elimination of tariffs on industrial goods. Our services exporters will have access to liberalised and improved regulatory regimes for investment, notably in mining and resources, telecommunications and financial services. The TPP-11 is truly a next-generation trade agreement, and for the first time in a trade agreement, TPP-11 countries will guarantee the free flow of data across borders for services suppliers and investors as part of their business activity. This movement of information, or data flow, is relevant to all kinds of Australian businesses, from a hotel which relies on an international online reservation system to a telecommunications company providing data management services to businesses across a number of the TPP-11 markets. It's important to note that TPP-11 governments have retained the ability to maintain and amend regulations related to data flows, but have undertaken to do so in a way that does not create barriers to trade. The TPP-11 also creates Australia's first free trade agreements with Canada and Mexico, giving Australian exporters preferential access to two of the world's top 20 economies for the first time. In 2016-17, nearly 1/4 of Australia's total exports, worth roughly $88 billion, went to TPP-11 countries. The forthcoming entry into force of the TPP-11 is a significant moment for open markets, for free trade and the rules-based international system. But it's important to note that the achievement of a final TPP-11 deal was far from guaranteed. When the United States withdrew from the original TPP-11, from the original TPP in early 2017, the prospects of the groundbreaking deal were far from certain. For Australia and its TPP partners, it was a test of resolve and judgment. There was no guarantee of success. Now, one option was retreat. There would have been no new and historic access to the Canadian market for our grains, refined sugar and beef exporters, no new access to the Mexican market for our pork, wheat, sugar, barley and horticultural producers, and education services providers. There would have been no improved access to the Japanese market for our beef, wheat, barley and dairy exporters, no improved access for our wine producers in the Vietnamese, Canadian, Mexican and Malaysian markets. Now, thankfully, the government and our trading partners, led by Japan, together with Australia and New Zealand, pressed ahead. As a consequence, our global trading system is stronger today because of the TPP-11. We have created a beacon for nations who want to work within a rules-based framework that is complementary to the global architecture provided by the World Trade Organization. We want the TPP-11 to grow in membership. We don't want the TPP-11 to be an exclusive, inward-looking bloc. And we welcome the interest in TPP-11 shown already by nations within and outside the Asia-Pacific, including the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and even the UK, as well as Colombia. Given the significant contribution the TPP-11 will make to our trading future, it is important Australia and its TPP partners reap the benefits of the deal as soon as possible. The TPP-11 will enter into force 60 days after the 6 TPP-11 member countries complete all necessary ratification procedures. To date, 3 countries, Mexico, Japan and Singapore, have ratified the agreement, and a number of other countries, including New Zealand, Peru and Canada, have indicated that they will ratify in the coming months. In other words, if Australia and 5 other countries can complete ratification before the end of October, the TPP-11 will enter into force before the 31st of December this year. That means there will be 2 opportunities for tariff reduction, the first on entry into force and the second on the 1st of January 2019. On the other hand, if the TPP-11 were to enter into force this year without Australia, our exporters would be placed at a significant competitive disadvantage. For example, New Zealand and Canada would have superior access to the Japanese beef and dairy markets, better access to the Japanese cheese market, and better access to wine markets in Mexico. That's the consequence if Australia is not among the first 6. We will be in a significantly competitively disadvantaged position vis-à-vis key competitors of ours if we are not in the first 6. But the deal signed on the 8th of March 2018 is one that fundamentally serves Australia's national interest. Its scope and level of ambition cannot be underestimated. It will create new opportunities and greater certainty for our businesses and encourage job-creating foreign investment. It will make Australian exports more competitive so our farmers can sell more produce, our professionals can provide more services, and our manufacturers can make and sell more goods. Our involvement in the negotiation of this deal means Australia played a key role in setting 21st century rules for commerce across the world's fastest-growing region. This will enable us to tackle new trade and investment barriers as they arise, helping our businesses weather the increasingly challenging global trading environment. These bills will see the elimination of 98% of tariffs from TPP-11 countries in a regional free trade zone that already accounts for over 1/5 of Australia's two-way trade. The TPP-11 tariff cuts will have a cost-saving impact on imported goods for Australian households and businesses and will deliver material gains for our exports. Here in Australia, this agreement has undergone a level of scrutiny perhaps unprecedented by any other free trade agreement. It has been subject to 5 parliamentary committee inquiries. After the TPP-11 was tabled in the House of Representatives on the 26th of March this year, it was examined by the Joint Standing Committee on Treaties. On the 22nd of August, the committee recommended that Australia take binding treaty action in respect of the TPP-11. I urge the Parliament to support the swift passage of the TPP-11 implementing legislation because I want Australia to remain a leader among trading nations, a country that is not afraid to show our trading partners in concrete actions that we are committed to a future of liberalised trade and investment. And this is what these TPP-11 implementing bills represent. Our early ratification of the TPP-11 demonstrates Australia's leadership in pursuing liberalised trade globally and embodies the government's strong commitment to maximising trading opportunities for Australian businesses, both large and small. The TPP-11 outcome is a feature of an ambitious and confident trade policy, one that didn't turn back at the first hurdle, an audacious but pragmatic approach that, in my view, has been the hallmark of this government's trade and investment policy. Can I also comment, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, on some of the contributions that I've heard? I want to acknowledge at the outset the excellent working relationship that I had with the Shadow Trade Minister. He and I were able to speak regularly on the importance of TPP, and I recognise and respect that Labor has a different approach in a number of limited areas. I note in particular that Labor says if they are elected to government, or if they are subsequently elected, and certainly those on this side of the House hope that does not occur, but if they are subsequently elected, I note the Australian Labor Party says that they would renegotiate the TPP-11 with respect to ISDS and with respect to labour market testing waiver. Now, I note that neither of the bills before the House today deal with those aspects of the agreement, and I recognise and applaud Labor's vision about ensuring Australia continues to maintain its position globally as being the champions of liberalised and freer trade. Labor's support on this, of course, is critical. But I note, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker, some of the comments that have been made by, for example, the member for Bendigo. And I heard, frankly, outrageous claims that are completely without foundation in fact whatsoever. When I heard, for example, the litany of examples of workers being exploited or not paid in accordance with Australian standards, when I heard concerns that were put forward about foreign workers being paid less or not meeting Australian standards, I note that activity is illegal. There is nothing in this agreement whatsoever that in any way, shape or form would give comfort to those businesses acting in an illegal way. So when I hear claims by the member for Bendigo talking about exploitation of foreign workers and either ostensibly, directly or indirectly linking it back to the TPP-11, those claims are false. That activity is illegal and remains illegal. And I note, Mr Speaker, Acting Deputy Speaker, that this nation's economic growth, the jobs that employ millions of people, the wealth and prosperity of regional Australia is entirely dependent on our ability to trade. If we are truly going to be a nation that generates wealth in regional parts of Australia, if we're going to help the cane exporters, if we're going to help the beef exporters, the sheep meat exporters, the best way we can help them is to ensure that they have access to global markets. And in fact, the best way we can assist them, and I think back to my childhood, growing up in a regional community in far north Queensland, the best way that we can help those exporters, Mr Speaker, is to make sure that we give them a competitive advantage over competitor nations like the United States. And that is precisely what the TPP-11 will do. It gives our beef exporters a significant competitive advantage over direct exports that come from the United States and competitor countries like that. It ensures our ability to tap into markets like Japan is more enhanced than it has ever been in our nation's history. And that's what drives wealth and prosperity in regional Australia. I note as well the Labor Party's made comments about ISDS, and I respect that Labor has a different position. But Labor talks about, at every occasion, how ISDS is bad for Australia and how they say multinational corporations can sue the Australian government. Well, they cannot. We can exercise public policy with the full suite of tools available to the Australian government without fear of being sued. But I'll tell you what Labor always forgets. They forget that ISDS is critical for Australian businesses abroad. That's when we need ISDS, not for foreign companies in Australia, for Australian businesses internationally. So, Mr Speaker, I welcome Labor's continuation of long-held practice, where we work constructively on matters of foreign policy and trade policy, and I have great pleasure in commending these bills to the House.
The immediate question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. So the contrary, no. I think the noes have it. The ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes.